We thought that a new constitution and a new constitutional dispensation would help this country. We have tried to apply the antidotes that are to be found in the constitution, but new and bigger wounds are appearing. We thought that we would eliminate political mobilization on the basis of negative ethnicity. It is alive and well. We thought that we would eliminate corruption in our politics and the politics of money and money bags would disappear. It is alive and well. We thought that we would eliminate arrogance in the hearts and minds of the political class. It is alive and well. We thought that changing the names of our forces, the police force, into a service will change how it relates to the people. It is worse now. We thought that people would be judged by the content of their character, but now it is the size of people's anatomy. Testicles is what politicians are telling us, whether they are the size of the elephant or the rabbit. We are in a bad place. But yet we cannot afford the luxury of losing hope.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome. We're getting into a conversation where we're at a crossroads and we're asking, what does the future look like? And our guest is in the hot seat this morning. Professor PLO Lumumba is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya and Tanganyika. That's another one that's no mean feat. Good morning, Prof.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm very well.
You know, I'm going to ask a question on behalf of everybody.
Please do.
So we know that there was Patrice Lumumba. So everybody wants to know what PLO all stands for.
Patrick Lodge Otieno Lumumba.
Thanks. I Lodge.
Victory.
It sounds like something that must be accompanied by a great soundtrack.
Yeah.
Lodge's victory.
Yes, it did.
I have done the world a favor. So there you go. Now everybody knows.
Yes, indeed.
Karibu sana, Prof.
Asante sana.
No sooner than had you been here last time when we were talking about the direction in which we ought to go and the position that leaders ought to take and the birthright that Kenyans need to hold on to and that live that out with fear and trembling, things seem to have spiraled out of control. And we're at a crossroads, many would say. And what are we going to do to take the step? In which direction should we go? That forms the basis of our conversation today. But before we do, Dennis is going to take you to Burundi. And would like your interpretation of the proverb that he was sharing.
So Burundi recently changed its capital from Bujumbura to Gitega. Yes. And one of the things that stands out with Burundi is how it is such a small country with so much wealth, yet considered one of the poorest countries. And one would only hope that now that it's in the East African region, the bloc would move together and see that all these economies get to grow together. And its economy is largely dependent on subsistence agriculture. Main crops include coffee, tea, maize, and bananas. But our proverb from this great country is, you cannot hide smoke if there is fire.
And that is the truth. And of course, you've got to contextualize it within the meaning and the history of Rwanda and Urundi. In other words, the truth can never be hidden. It will manifest itself whether you like it or not.
It will not be hidden. It might take some time as well.
Oh yeah, you may try all you want. But ultimately, it rears its head, whether ugly or not.
You know, Prof, we often want to be prescriptive about things and we say, well, this is where there is disease and what can we apply to it to make it feel a little bit better and get to the place where there is healing. And even as we may do that today, it would be good to hear your insights, or it would be good to have your understanding of what we see happening in the country at the moment. We're hearing cries, we're seeing a lot of tears, we're hearing a lot of agony, we're hearing still in the midst of that a lot of hope. Where do you see that we are at? Many would call it a crossroads.
You know, as I thought about this conversation, several things came to my mind. Our country is between the devil and the deep blue sea. Our country is between the hammer and the anvil. Our country, if I go to Greece, is between the Scylla and the Charybdis. We are in a bad place. I've been around and I can tell you that this is perhaps the worst. I was around in the 70s, I was around in the 80s, I was fairly active in the 1990s and late 1980s. And for the first time in the history of this country, we are in a situation where we are moving consistently in the wrong direction. When we were making the Constitution in the year 2010, and prior to that, when we started under the Constitution of Kenya Review Commission to correct the people's views, we thought that a new constitution and a new constitutional dispensation would help this country. We have tried to apply the antidotes that are to be found in the Constitution, but new and bigger wounds are appearing. We thought that we would eliminate political mobilization on the basis of negative ethnicity. It is alive and well. We thought that we would eliminate corruption in our politics and the politics of money and money bags would disappear. It is alive and well. We thought that we would eliminate arrogance in the hearts and minds of the political class. It is alive and well. We thought that changing the names of our forces, the police force, into a service will change how it relates to the people. It is worse now. We thought that people would be judged by the content of their character, but now it is the size of people's anatomy. Testicles is what politicians are telling us, whether they are the size of the elephant or the rabbit. We are in a bad place. But yet we cannot afford the luxury of losing hope. There is a sense in which all of us have sinned and fallen short of the expectations of this country. But the biggest sinners are the political class across the political divide. And there is nothing new when I see a country that has elections 2 years away, and on a daily basis, every weekend, politicians are on top of motor vehicles seeking to be presidents. The new game in town are people who want to be the president, who want to be the president of the Republic of Kenya. It is good to be ambitious, but what do we want to become presidents of? We must fix our nation first. Look at the way we drive. It is a statement of who we are. No discipline. Impunity has taken charge of our country. Look at how we behave even when we are in buildings in lifts. Look at the language that we use in the National Assembly. Look at the language that we use in public rallies. Look at the vitriol of an ethnic nature that spews out of people who describe themselves as national leaders. Look at the impunity, how young men can be extracted from their homes and be murdered, and we are not angry. And even when we are angry, our political class don't appear to see it, giving meaning to this, that when God wants to destroy a country, it makes its leaders impervious to reason. And then they begin to believe that they have the monopoly of knowledge and wisdom. That is the space in which we are. On 26th, I scouted around the headlines all over the world. Almost 110 countries had Kenya on their headlines. With the consequence that if you are a tourist, you are cancelling your visit to Kenya. That if you are an investor, you are cancelling your investment plans in Kenya. If you are a young man, you are losing hope in Kenya. And yet our politicians are effectively saying that if the men and women who love this country come out to express their dissatisfaction, shoot them on sight.
Yeah.
That is where we are, but we cannot give up.
Professor, is it the crisis we currently see in the country, is it due to system failure? Is it a question of moral character? Is it spiritual bankruptcy? What is it?
It is a combination of all those. Let's start with spirituality. We are Christians, we are Muslims, we are Hindus, we are African spiritualists, but we say with our mouth what we do not believe in our hearts. We condemn corruption and we participate in it. We pray on a daily basis. Kenya is one of the few countries that when you go into a public meeting or a private meeting, we start with prayers. But do we believe it? No, we don't. Look at the moral bankruptcy. Look at what is happening. The commission that was appointed by the president to deal with the question of gender-based violence, the members said they are traumatized because of what they listened to. We need to morally rearm. Systems failures. I personally have sent clips of people who are saying that ethnic group should rise against ethnic group to the National Commission on Cohesion. What they receive is a slap on the wrist. We see governors who have stolen in the billions, and yet only half of it is taken. Impunity is now running roughshod in our country. So the systems have failed. We made unto ourselves a constitution and we thought that that constitution would cure us. I remember one of the things that we said, we are no longer going to have people going to State House to ask for this thing called development. So today, I see people from my part of the world going to the State House and they say, we have come out with development as if it were confetti to be issued by one individual. My brother, it is a combination of all those things. The beauty of it is that we have made a diagnosis, which means that we can find an antidote. The question is, are we ready to bear? Because it may be painful before it becomes better.
Prof, we talk about the Constitution of Kenya 2010, a beautiful document that we have, and with all the hope that came with this document, one would have seen Kenya become this great country to be in. But the political class has let us down with regard to the implementation, and even us as the citizenry have failed because we have played ball with the politicians. And we come to talk about the political goodwill to change things, the political goodwill to implement the constitution, because Kenya has to be run under the rule of law. But look at those with the responsibility to protect and defend these documents are the ones failing while at it. Which way, Kenya, Prof?
You know, I was very intimately involved in the constitution making process, and I dare say I'm the only one who has written a book that gives you a blow-by-blow account on what happened. And all these individuals that you now see who are running this country and who are in the opposition and in the government, I was with them. And I have the attendance list of all of them. Some of them did not even spend a quarter of the time listening to what we were doing. I can tell you that one of the mistakes that we made was to have people who did not believe in the Constitution as the implementers of the Constitution. And in their hearts and minds, they simply want to undo what was prescribed in the Constitution. Remember that the very first Constitution that we came up with in 2005 was rejected at a referendum, and then we went through the 2007-2008 clashes. Then we made the Constitution of Kenya 2010, which borrows very heavily from the Boma's draft. But these individuals, you know, you cannot have people who have no faith in a document as the ones who engaged in implementing it, so that the culture has not changed. You know, one of the things that this country must grapple with at a certain stage, however painful it is, that we may consider having a transitional government which brings people who will only serve for the purpose of midwifing a new dispensation. Look at the opposition. Some of the individuals who are in the opposition were in the opposition when I was still a student at the university. I'm now past retirement age. And they tell us that they are God's gift to Kenya. No, they simply want to fulfill the ambition that they want to be president or minister and that. And this is painful because Kenya has not known real change in terms of political culture. And it is the culture that we must change. The culture where people believe that occupation of public office is service, that you are trustees for the people. What we have are individuals who think that they are lords of the people. This is why we have what are called ethnic kingpins, who tell you, we have read the constitution, read it not, because we have read it.
How do you change culture? Because I think about it, right? It's everything that we do. You're accustomed to it on a daily basis. You breathe it, you live it, you eat it, you dress it. You are in it. That's what culture is.
Indeed.
Over time, it's compounded, it's compacted. How do you unlearn it?
You know, what you now see in Kenya in the last 1 year with these young people called the Gen Zs, this is the beginning of culture change. A little more organization, a little more focus, then it will be unstoppable, because they are saying we cannot continue doing things in the same way and expect different results. Some of them I saw rejecting bribes of 100 from a politician. Yesterday, the 30th day of June, somewhere in Central Province, I saw them telling a senator, we will not allow this to happen. They are beginning to say, we will not be bribed. They are beginning to say, we enjoy our cultural diversity, but we are not going to be mobilized on the basis of ethnicity. They are beginning to tell the politicians, you must be accountable. They are beginning to say that our taxes are meant to be for our benefit. They are beginning to say that you are our servant. They are beginning to say that you must do what is in our best interest. I saw some of them debating with the policemen, telling them, we are on the same side. You suffer the same way we do. Culture is beginning to change. It is old culture, old habits can only be driven out by new habits. That is the history and the lesson of history at once. It may take time. It may not be as dramatic as we want, because there will be pushback. You hear the politician, for example, saying, but you want us to go. Where do we go? But I tell them, it is your duty to ask yourself, if you allow me a little heresy, why is it that the same crowd that sang Hosanna in the highest 2 years ago is the same crowd that is saying crucify him?
Yeah.
It is your duty to ask that question.
It's a modern day Kenyan situation. It is.
And it is a time for reflection. And one of the things that I hope will happen, and I'm one who is in the business of writing, in 2023, I wrote to the president, I wrote to the kind of Mr. Odinga, and told them exactly what is happening. On the 23rd day of June, I wrote to the Inspector General of Police and to the minister in charge, for the time being in charge of internal security, saying, let the police guard the demonstrators. They did for us in 1990s. And when you do so, they'll give you the routes. The young men in Mombasa actually gave routes and the time. But what happened? We saw chaos, manufactured chaos. Of course, the jury is still out as to who manufactured it, but manufactured. And that is arrogance. And there is nothing that is worse than arrogance. The Greeks used to say, call it hubris, and it has an antidote, nemesis. And what we are now beginning to see is nemesis. But we cannot afford the luxury of being spectators, because when your house is on fire, you don't run after rats that are coming out of it. You put off the fire. Our house is on fire. A country that was respected in this region is losing its respect. A country that was respected is surrendering to goons a la Haiti. Somebody even asked, when we went to Haiti, were we on a benchmarking mission so that we would import the habits of the Duvaliers, Papa Doc and Baby Doc? It may be painful when we pose this question, but we do so because we love this country.
Prof, at what cost? You've traversed the continent. You have seen this kind of revolts, movements emerging, and we're seeing pockets of it across the continent. The human cost to this, every day there's a mother crying. We've never seen, like you rightly put it, we've never seen a moment in the history of this country where constantly you're trying to look for good news, you can't find it anywhere. And it's young people, this same Gen Zs, it's the young people who are being murdered, who are being abducted. Right now, Diangui is still missing. Nobody's taking responsibility for it. Boniface Karaoke died in hospital, shot at close range. People are asking for justice. So there is blood on the soil. So with what you've seen, this pattern, I'm sure you've seen it across other parts of the continent, this pattern, how long can this go? Because we're seeing the human cost of it. There is blood being spilled almost on a daily basis. How far can it go before we can get into a reset mode, so to speak?
You know, my brother and my sister, we have seen this happen before, and it's our duty to learn from history and to shorten our journey towards resolution. We saw the Tahrir Square, which brought the Arab Spring and what it did in Tunisia, what it did with Libya, which is still under the situation that it is in, what it did in Egypt, what it did in Syria. My own suggestion is that those who have the honor and privilege of sitting in political office are the ones who can shorten it in an orderly manner so that it is not disorderly. And one of the things that is in my mind, if I were the president of Kenya today, I would call a serious national and serious urgent national dialogue, not NADCO, which is meant to serve the political class. In my meeting, I would have the entire political class. In my meeting, I would have the entire religious fraternity. In my meeting, I would have the entire leadership of different communities. In my leadership, in my meeting, I would have academics. In my meeting, I would have young people. I would have women's organization. I would even have the disciplined forces to discuss only one agenda item. With Kenya, where are we going and what can we do to resolve the crisis in Kenya? And I hope that the president will have the moral courage to do so before the next declared demonstration day, which is on the 7th. A leader who listens and does what he himself may not like but is necessary is a servant leader. Because we are now creating a culture where demonstrations which are interrupted is becoming de rigueur. And the situation is this: if you allow people to exercise their constitutional right and to have petitions, it will be orderly. But the tragedy is that the political players are in a competition, because they are campaigning already. That is why you see people crisscrossing the country and saying they are going to solve the problems of Kenya when they become the president. They will not. The problem is now so deeply seated. It is now so cancerous that not one person at the top will resolve it. So let us, my brother, resolve the issue, shorten it, and I hope that the political leadership will do it. There are people who are respectable in all these sectors, and they must be listened to. It pains me when I listened to some of the politicians, and some of them were my students, saying in response to the clergymen that you are wrong. The clergymen, when I listened to my good friend Archbishop Muheria, he loves this country.
Prof, we live at a time when the country is yearning for change. Look at across all corners, and all that everyone wants is change. You listen to the young people, and the agenda the young people are pushing is we want accountability, we want proper use of the funds that we toiled so hard to pay for. Yet we are as well in a political class that does not want to listen. This is our way, this is what we know to do, and this is how we continue to push it. And the young people are saying, we don't care, the country must change. But that is met with force, with death, with abductions, and a lot of pain. And as we sit here, Prof, the country needs that national dialogue, but one would say it has been called for a very long time, but no one wants that dialogue.
I hope that this time round, there was a day not too long ago when the President of the Republic of Kenya apologized. And I thought that one of the things that would emanate from that apology was structured national reconciliation. What I've seen subsequently is the hardening of positions. What I've seen subsequently within the political class is alignment on the basis of formations. Formations where people are saying in the 21st century that we are Nilots, that we are Bantus, and that political contestation in the year 27 is going to be on those formations. It is tragic. In the 21st century, when we also say we want to be part of a larger East Africa, part of an Africa, we are going to primordial instincts. The time is now for the politicians to listen. And I hope they will. And sometimes people are made to listen through repetition. I look forward to the day when all the newspapers in the country will produce a newspaper with nothing in it except one item on the agenda at the very headline. Let us reason together. I look forward to that day, if that is what is going to take, because it will take something very dramatic. If you believe and read the story in the Bible about the Pharaoh, every time that God wanted to make him release his people, let my people go, his heart would be hardened. I hope that the latter day pharaohs in our country will not harden their hearts for the sake of this country, for the sake of their children and children's children. They owe it to us, and we too owe it to ourselves. It is Thomas Joseph Mboya who said in 1967, when he was talking about Kenya and people were complaining that Kenya, who will build Kenya? He said, there are no supermen that are going to come to Kenya to build her. We are the supermen and superwomen. We must play our part.
Can we see parts of this wheel, cogs in the wheel, and we see several things happening, that the way in which we report or talk about things has changed significantly, that there is a different kind of technology which we use for passing along messages, and that lobbying and protesting is one age-old traditional way of getting a message across. Do you see that the employ of different of these mechanisms will actually make a difference? And I ask this in direct connection with the protests that we have seen and those that we are likely to see coming in the future. Are they actual tools that can be used, that can bring about some kind of change?
When to answer your question, first of all, when I saw during the demonstrations on the 25th, the gentleman who is in charge of communication saying that media houses are banned from airing the proceedings real time. I said he must be living in a totally different century, because those are old tactics that used to work in the 1960s. In fact, the real protest in this country is to be found in the social media. What you see in the streets is just a dramatization of it that is necessary to have boots on the ground, in a manner of speaking. And the revolution that are taking place are now taking place in the Instagram, in Twitter, in Signal, and in those spaces, because you capture people in the millions. And in my view, therefore, the style and methods of protestation have changed dramatically, but old is gold. The reason why old is gold is because when you appear flesh and blood, the message is totally different. When I saw a little girl doing the pole vault to cross the razor wires, that image is throughout the world. It is without precedent. And I want to imagine to myself when the politicians are sitting in the inner recesses of their sanctums, when they see those images, does it touch their hearts?
Do you reckon it does?
From the evidence I see, at least the faces that we see in the media, it appears that they are unmoved and untouched. And I look forward to the day when they are moved and untouched. You know, I remember in the 1980s and 1990s, even when Daniel Moi was desperate to remain in power, when the Catholic Church issued a pastoral paper accompanied by the Protestants and the Muslims and the Hindus, the next thing you would see is Maurice Cardinal Otunga and Njue at State House, and the president would suddenly change. That is how the Saitoti Commission came in 1988. That is how President Moi at Kasarani, against all odds, told the people, no, Section 2A must go. In other words, he knew when to stop, when the country was under threat.
Right.
A good leader, or one that is capable of reading the mood of the nation, must be able to say, this is the direction that I want to take, but I can no longer take it.
But Prof, the clergy has gone to State House quite a number of times. Many times, if you look at the history of all the presidents and the visits they get from religious leaders, the president had several opportunities to make things right. When he called for press briefing, dissolved the cabinet, when he talked about austerity measures, when he joined the experts to have conversations with the young people there, it almost gave that semblance that maybe he's ready to listen. By the evidence, it's clearly he didn't listen. But is the church complicit? Because the church back then was so powerful in the decisions they would make. And allow me to also ask this, because at one moment you got a bit emotional when you were talking about Bishop Muheria and his love for the country. And you took a pause there. What was going on in your mind? And when you look at the way people are trying to reach out, but there is a block. Religious leaders who love this country, there are those who indeed love this country, have tried to speak, but their voices are drowned by all the noise around. When you speak from your heart, because I saw you take a pause there when you mentioned Bishop Muheria and his love for the country. What is this about the church, and is the church complicit in this case?
There is the danger in Kenya of always confusing the religious community with Christianity. I go beyond that, because they are Muslim brethren, they are Hindu brethren, they are even African spiritualists. But when you talk about the clergy in Kenya today, there is the clergy and the clergy. There is a segment of the clergy who are transactional. Let's be blunt about it. They are transactional, and they simply want to have dalliance with political power for the sake of personal benefit and influence. Then there are those who Their faults notwithstanding love this country, and they are to be found. People, as I've already talked about, Bishop Muheria, I know the moderator of the Presbyterian Church, I know the head of the Anglican Church, the head of the SDA. These are individuals who don't speak often, but when they do, because they have a clergy, they have a congregation that us. Remember, the church is us. If we are Christians, the Islamic Ummah is not the imams. So my own view is that it is those clergy, and some of them have been shut out from these spaces, and they are the ones who are vilified when they speak the truth. The president, during that short period, that is in June of the year 2024, appeared to have known that there was something happening. But he very quickly backpedaled, because in his reconstitution of the cabinet, the people that we thought would go are the very same that would come. So it became musical chairs. And ultimately, therefore, there was a need for the change to be pushed a little further. But one of the things that I've noticed in this country is the assumption on the part of the politicians that Kenyans are stupid, and that we have the memory of a warthog, and that what we say today we will not remember tomorrow. And for that reason, they know that, or they think that we will not remember. And they also think that we can be mobilized ethnically. I listen, I take care, and listen to some of the things that are said by politicians in their mother tongue. It is sad. Forget this podium position that they take when they come to Nairobi. It is toxic what they say in their mother tongue across the country. And the president has a duty which is constitutional, which is given to him by dint of the office that he occupies. It is Nyerere who said it very well. And he said it in Kiswahili, and I'm going to say it in Kiswahili. Ikulu ni mahali patakatifu. Usiligeuze kuwa pango la walanguzi. Says the State House is a holy place. Don't convert it into a den of thieves and ne'er-do-wellers. This is the time when the President of the Republic of Kenya should jettison some of the old people that are around him and ask, when the history of Kenya is written, it will be said it was during your watch. All these hangers-on, historians will not remember. Historians will only remember William Samoei Ruto. And the question is, how does William Samoei Ruto want to be remembered?
He does feel, and this is interesting that you ask this, how will he be remembered when he has had opportunity to speak and to address some of these issues that are being brought to the fore? He has said many times that he believes that he's tightening the screws and that he is making good decisions for the country, whether those be economic decisions, whether these be social justice issues, decisions around those, administrative issues. He believes that decisions that he's making or the things that he's doing, he's tightening the screws to get this vehicle moving right.
My sister,
do you believe that he actually believes
it is
that
not
what he's
all
doing
doom
is
and
right?
gloom?
There
It is
we
all
go.
not all doom and gloom. I think there are certain things that are happening that we may not see the results immediately, and they may, in the fullness of time, actually yield the desired fruits. But remember, you are dealing with an impatient crowd, the crowd that was promised heaven, and you are not delivering it. And give me this analogy. It is something that Martin Luther King Jr. said in 1960. He said, there was a day I went into a meeting, and when you want to be president, so what? You can serve your country. Some of the greatest men that I know and women that I know never occupied any public office. What office did Luther King occupy? What office did Mahatma Gandhi occupy? You can be a moral leader influencing processes without occupying office. We must exorcise the ghosts that want us to massage our egos. The day we do that, we'll have a serious national dialogue. But we must constantly remind ourselves that we have had this before. What are we doing differently? Or we are merely having a dialogue to cool the situation. The dialogues we have had, unfortunately, and you are right in this regard, has been to cool the situation. And when things cool, we go back to our old ways. I was telling somebody yesterday when I was driving, because driving in Nairobi is war. And I was telling that individual that we all, as the beginning of this national rearmament, all of us should go back to the driving school. All of us. So that we begin to learn anew. And once we begin to do those little things, we will begin to change how we behave. Good manners. We have become a nation where people are shameless. Shame is a good thing. Because it allows you to do things in an orderly manner.
Prof, do you think the political class is ready to have this discussion? Because so far the hearts are dark and
they will
hard.
be forced to. The political class would love a situation as it is, but they'll be forced to. Throughout history, the political class in many countries have just been pushed to a corner, and then they can't move. It is, I think, the last time when we said that amongst the Tui, there is a saying that if you run after a coward for too long, you meet his or her courage. I think the political class have run after us, Kenyans, for too long, thinking we are cowards. They are now beginning to meet our courage. And the national courage are the young people called the Gen Zs. Just order, organization, structures, and they take the vote. In the morning, they will have a new dispensation that answers to the needs of Kenya. But remember, good governance requires eternal vigilance. All of us are capable of following the wrong path if we are not kept on a short leash.
Professor Patrick Lot Otieno Lumumba, thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you very much.
A lot to learn from, a lot to continue discourse over, and we're glad that you started off this conversation with us this morning. Asante.
Asante sana.
Good morning.